It's been a long day. It's been long everything, actually. It's been a long month. It's been a long week. It's been a long everything. I am tired. And so, anyways, I came back from work today and I was like, well, I'm gonna lay down and read for a bit. And I wanted to read this, but then I can't just read that without you, you know? So I decided to come back on here and read it with you, but then I fell asleep for like 3 hours. Um, I'm feeling better now. And here we are. I wanna start reading right away because nothing because that's what we're doing here. I'm gonna start reading right away. So we are reading Darwin's the Origin of Species. And the cool thing about this book for me is that it has been such a big part of basically every single lecture, every single uni I've been to, every single anything. And I love this book, but I've never read it. Or I love the things that we have learned from this book and the history behind it, and this story of him being like on the MHS Eagle and traveling and figuring so much stuff out. And I love this, but at the same time I had never read the actual book, so I decided to start reading that a few weeks ago. If you want to see the readings from the first few times, you can see them on Facebook, or not on Facebook, what on YouTube, because I'm doing it both at the same time. I'm very happy to be reading this book now because it's actually super interesting and I have a lot of aha moments. The book is Charles Darwin, The Origin of Species. So let's get right into it. We were on page 15 of the first chapter, and we're gonna go into the... What is this? What does that mean? Invites you, what? Sorry, something popped up on my phone. I don't know. I have no idea. Anyways, yeah. So we're reading now on page 15, and we're going into the section of the first chapter that is going to talk about breeds of the domestic pigeon and their differences and origin. I have had quite a few like aha moments during this book, and I really enjoy it. So yay. Okay. Believing that it is always best to study some special group, I have, after deliberation, taken up domestic pigeons. May I say that my sister hates pigeons with a passion. It's incredible. She hates pigeons so much. It's quite funny. And I like pigeons because I studied neurobiology and cognitive biology, and during my studies in behavioral and cognitive biology, there are so many pigeon studies that you get to learn, because pigeons apparently are super patient birds that are up to doing a task over and over and over and over again. So that makes them great testing subjects, because they keep going, they keep testing, you get a test of like, oh, can you differentiate these numbers? There are other bird species that are just gonna get over it and be like, okay, yes, I can, but I don't want to deal with you right now. And pigeons are like, yes, of course I can. And they do it, and they do it, and they do it again, and then again, and again. And it's so funny because, it's so funny that they are so patient and persistent and consistent in the stuff that they're doing, and this is so amazing. I love it. I don't know why I'm so maybe I'm only so passionate about pigeons because my sister is not, because my sister is so anti-pigeon. Also, we grew up in Greece in a town where there are so many pigeons, and I do understand that. Have I told you that I had this pet pigeon sometime? It was so cool. I was living in Greece for a while in my adult life then, and I was living in our city apartment, and there we had okay, chill. We had this. What is this? What is this popping up thingy that people are inviting me to co-host? What am I? Where in Greece? Patras. And did you name the pigeon? I did. I did name the pigeon. So there was this pigeon that I was pretty depressed, and I lived there for a while, and I was alone there for a while, and then we all know that pigeons are a pest. And I'm doing that because I do not think that pigeons are a pest. I think that pigeons are the best thing that's ever happened to anyone. Well, there are limitations to what I would like to be doing with pigeons. Like, I don't want to be sharing my indoor space with them. If But that's the same way, like, I wouldn't want to share my indoor space with any other animal, humans included. Like, stay out. But the thing is that what their role is, I don't know what my role is. How would I know what their role is? It's all an ecosystem thing. No, but what I love about pigeons is their consistency and their persistence and everything, that they're like, okay, well, I'm gonna be here and I'm gonna do this however often you try to kick my way or something, which I hate, by the way. We don't do that to birds, to any animals, humans included. Again, we don't kick people. We don't kick people of any species. Oh no, we don't kick books either. I'm sorry. Yeah, but I had this pigeon, and she built a nest. And have you ever seen how dumb pigeons are when building a nest? It's like, it's incredible. They are so bad at building nests that she had brought like three tiny little branches that could not hold anything, and had put these branches onto the balcony, like straight there, and just sat on them, and then she laid eggs. But then after a month or something, where I didn't tell my mom anything about this pigeon because I was afraid that she was gonna get rid of the pigeon. My mom didn't even live in that apartment, right? Nobody. I didn't tell anybody because I felt like they were gonna get rid of my pigeon and her babies. So I never saw that. She got used to me at some point, and it was so nice. It was like she came closer, and pigeons in Europe are different. They don't care about no one, but out here you move around them. Well, they don't care about anyone. That's true, and I like that too, because that's the confidence we're aspiring, right? No, but this pigeon, she was shit at building nests, like every pigeon. And she was getting used to me because that was the balcony on which I was hanging my clothes out to dry. So I noticed her when I went out, and I didn't want to frighten her. So I was like staying to the side. And after a few times we did that, she actually didn't leave the balcony anymore. She didn't go outside of the railing and everything. So I was very I felt very special. Okay, this pigeon and I were like that, and she disappeared at some point, including the eggs. I don't know what happened there. I have no idea if somebody else, which is not really possible, because who, if not another predatory bird, like who else would go and come there and take her eggs away? But you know how chickens sometimes eat their eggshells after the young have have hatched. Yeah, so maybe she did that too. But at the same time, I didn't ever see the young birds either. So has anyone ever seen a baby pigeon? Because I only see them in their pigeon state, adult pigeon state. You have? In this, where? How? What did it do? How did it look? Gotta climb trees. Yeah, I don't want to frighten the birds. I don't want to frighten the pigeons. I don't want to. Oh my god, poor things. I don't know. I don't know. I'm too much of a biologist for this. But I love pigeons. We didn't even get through the first sentence without me getting sidetracked. They're cuter when they get feathers, like all birds. Actually, like all anything, because how cute would I be if I had feathers? Everybody would be cuter if we had feathers. Now I want to be a pigeon. What? No, of course. We do want to get feathers. Like, imagine. Puppies and kittens. Yeah, that's a good argument. Puppies and kittens are... Yeah, that's true. But I would prefer to have feathers instead of having fur. I feel too close to fur, you know? Like, I feel like fur is already something we're lasering off. So feathers might be, I don't know, more socially acceptable. I don't know. I didn't even get through the first sentence. I need to concentrate, people. Okay, so believing that it is always best to study some special group, I have, after deliberation, taken up domestic pigeons. Also, Darwin, I mean, he does have like a bird thing, apparently, because it's Darwin. But I didn't know that he started with pigeons. I have kept every... I have kept every breed which I could purchase or obtain, and have been most kindly favored with skins from several quarters of the world, more especially by the Hon W. Elliot from India, and by the Hon C. Murray from Persia. Many treatises, I don't know the word, treatises in different languages have been published on pigeons. Okay, and some of them are very important as being of considerable antiquity. I have associated with several eminent fanciers and have been permitted to join 2 of the London Pigeons Clubs. What? There are London pigeon clubs? Are there? Do I want to be in a pigeon club? What do you do in a pigeon club? Yeah, that's true. I mean, somebody wrote that it's Darwin's theory. He himself admitted not taking it as a hypothesis or theory, not yet fact. Sure. But pigeon NFT, of course. NFT. How funny would it be to have a time machine and bring Darwin here and be like, well, what are you going to do in your pigeon club now? You got to buy pigeon NFTs, right? Yeah, that's good. Yes, it is a theory, but as we all know, every theory needs to be falsified. So how we do it in science is we pick a hypothesis and we're trying to do as many experiments we can to prove that this hypothesis is wrong. Because just because you say, oh, well, this one trick didn't help, this one thing didn't help, and you're like, okay, well, then this theory is wrong. That would be valid. But then if this one thing worked, you cannot automatically say that this theory is right for every single situation out there, you know? And there have been thousands of experiments and published articles about the theory of evolution, which is a theory, which have not once managed to falsify the theory of evolution. So we have not yet found a way to say that the theory of evolution is wrong, that it's not actually working, that evolution does not exist. But still, it's a theory. That's true. That's absolutely true. Okay, let me get back to it. Also, by the way, we're reading Charles Darwin, The Origin of Species. Okay. And we're at two of the London pigeon clubs, which I find hilarious. I love that. I want to be in a pigeon club. I want to be in a whale club too. I want to be in a lot of animal clubs. Could be perceived weirdly. I heard it afterwards. Yes. Okay. The diversity of the breeds is something astonishing. Compare the English Terrier and the short-faced Tumbler. Wouldn't be able to compare them because they wouldn't be able to distinguish them from one another. Compare the English Terrier and the short-faced Tumbler and see the wonderful difference in their beaks entailing corresponding differences in their skulls. Sure. The carrier, more especially the male bird, is also remarkable from the wonderful development of the carunculated skin about the head. Ah, okay, yes. And this is accompanied by greatly elongated eyelids, very large external orifices. I don't know how to pronounce half the words. I mean, where was I? Not again. Orifices to the nostrils and a wide gape of mouth. The short-faced tumbler has a beak in outline almost like that of a finch, and the common tumbler has the singular inherited habit of flying at a great height in a compact flock and tumbling in the air head over heels. Oh, I would love to be a tumbler. The runt is a bird of great size with long, massive beak and large feet. Some of the subbreeds of runts have very long necks, other very long wings and tails, others singularly short tails. The barb is allied to the carrier, but instead of a long beak, it has a very short and broad one. The prouder has a much... Do you know what would have helped? Pictures. Pictures would have helped greatly. Let me tell you that. You did? There's a documentary in them? I need to watch it. Okay. The pouter has a much elongated body, wings, and legs, and its enormously developed crop, which it glories in inflating, may well excite astonishment and even laughter. I love bird nerds. Or no, I don't actually, because I had to take a test from a bird nerd basically in uni, and I had to recognize birds. We had to go do excursions into the wild, into the woods, and basically listen for birds and recognize them by their song. And there are some people that are incredibly good at it, and they're like, oh well, did you hear that? Where is it? And then they find it even, and I'm like, no, what? Yeah. So I like bird nerds when we have to, when I don't have to participate in the hobbies. Where was I? The turbot has a short and conical beak with a line of reserved feathers down the breast, and it has the habit of continually expanding slightly the upper part of the esophagus. The Jacobin has the feathers so much reversed along the back of the neck that they form a hood, and it has proportionally to its size elongated wing and tail feathers. The trumpeter and laugher, as their names express, utter a very different coo from other breeds. The fantail, I didn't even know there were so many pigeon breeds. I had no idea. I had the trumpeter and laugher, as their names express, are a very different crew from the other breeds. The fantail has 30 or even 40 tail feathers instead of 12 or 14. What are you overcompensating, sir? What? And are kept expanded and are carried to erect that in good birds the head and tail touch. The oil gland is quite aborted. I didn't even know that we were thinking about the oil gland, but it's fine. Several other less distinct breeds might be specified. Okay, because these were so distinct and I knew about them. Not. In the skeletons of the several breeds, the development of the bones of the face in length and breadth and curvature differs enormously. The shape, as well as the breadth and length of the ramus and the lower jaw, varies in a highly remarkable manner. The caudal and sacral vertebrae vary in number, as does the number of the ribs. Did you know that we have the same amount of neck vertebra as a giraffe? And different pigeon breeds have different numbers. And that's cool. Okay, what? This is incredible. The shape, as well as the the size and shape of the apertures and the sternum are highly variable. So is the degree of divergence and relative size to the two arms of the furcula. The proportional width of the gape of mouth, the proportional length of the eyelids, of the orifice of the nostrils, of the tongue, not always in strict correlation with the length, or beak, the size of the crop, and the upper part of the esophagus, the development and abortion of the oil gland, the number of the primary wing and caudal feathers, the relative length of the wing and tail to each other to the body, the relative length of the leg and foot, the number of scutulae on the toes, the development of skin between the toes are all points of structure which are variable. The period at which the perfect plumage is acquired varies, as does the state of the down with which the nestling birds are clothed when hatched. The shape and size of the eggs vary. The manner of flight, and in some breeds the voice and disposition, differ remarkably. Lastly, in certain breeds, the males and females have come to differ in a slight degree from each other. Sexual dimorphism, obviously. Altogether, at least the score of pigeons might be chosen, which is shown to an ornithologist, and he were told that they were wild birds, would certainly be ranked by him as well-defined species, which they are not, as we all know. Hello, Timon! Sorry. Yeah. We're talking about birds. Yay. Okay. Where was I? I lost my spot. Yes, the well-defined species. Moreover, I do not believe that any ornithologist would, in this case, place the English carrier, the short-faced tumbler, the runt, the barb, the pouter, and fantail in the same genus, more especially as in each of these birds, several truly inherited subbreeds or species, as we would call them, could be shown him. Same. I'm very happy about it too. Yeah. Great as are the differences between the breeds of the pigeons, I am fully convinced that the common opinion of naturalists is correct, namely that all are descended from the rock pigeon. That's OG pigeon. Right there. Okay, Columbia livia, by the way, which is not italicized because that was not what we're doing back then. Unfortunately, gotta go continue staring. Goodbye. It was very nice meeting you. See you next time. I'm fully convinced that the common opinion of naturalists is correct, namely that all are descended from the rock pigeon.
including under this term several geographical races or subspecies which differ from each other in the most trifling respects. As several of the reasons which I have led me to this belief are in some degree applicable in other cases, I will here briefly give them. If the several breeds are not varieties and have not proceeded from the rock pigeon, they must have descended from at least 7 or 8 aboriginal stocks. For it is impossible to make the present domestic breeds by the crossing of any lesser number. Huh. Okay. How, for instance, could a powder be produced by crossing 2 breeds unless one of the parent stocks possessed the characteristic enormous crop? The supposed aboriginal stocks must all have been rock pigeons, that is, they did not breed or willingly perch on trees. But besides, see Libya, Colombia, Libya, the rock pigeon one, with its geographical subspecies, only 2 or 3 other species of rock pigeons are known, and these have not any of the characters of the domestic breeds. Hence, the supposed original stocks. Wait, which do we call? Which do we categorize as the domestic breeds? I don't like this. Hence, the supposed I think that pictures would have helped. Okay. Hence, the supposed aboriginal stocks must either still exist in the countries where they were originally domesticated and yet be unknown to ornithologists, and this, considering their size, habits, and remarkable characters, seems improbable. Or they must have become extinct in the wild state, which is probable because we are shitheads. Okay. But birds breeding on precipices and good flyers are unlikely to be exterminated. Try us, hold our beer. And the common rock pigeon, which has the same habits with the domestic breeds, has not been exterminated even on several of the smaller British islets or on the shores of the Mediterranean. Well, give us a little time. Hence, the supposed extermination of so many species having similar habits with the rock pigeon seems a very rash assumption. Yes, I get that, but also, we're humans. We can exterminate every single species because we are shitheads again. Okay. Very rash assumption, yes. Moreover, the several above-named domesticated breeds have been transported to all parts of the world, and therefore some of them must have been carried back again into their native country, but not one has become wild or feral through the dovecot pigeon, though the dovecot pigeon, which is the rock pigeon, in a very slightly altered state, has become feral in several places. They have not, but they have. They all sack at nest, but yeah, I know you weren't here yet, but I was talking about how I had a pigeon in Patras that was living on my balcony, and she had brought like 2 tiny little branches, had thrown them there, and was sitting in their vicinity and laid her eggs. It was crazy. It was incredible. It was so cute. She liked me. I know she liked me. Okay, I don't know if she liked me. She was not afraid of me at some point. That was more the case. But yeah. Also, if I was a pigeon and a mother, I would actually be proactively trying to protect my eggs. She was just leaving. I was fine because I didn't do anything to the eggs, but I could have every time, and that is not cool. There's a subreddit dedicated to failed pigeon nests. Are there any non-failed pigeon nests? Are there any pigeon nests that are like great architectural and engineering anything? I don't know. Okay. I don't remember when I was again. Has become feral in several places. Again, all recent experience shows that it is difficult to get wild animals to breed freely under domestication. Yet, guess why? Yet, Yet, on the hypothesis of the multiple origin of our pigeons, it must be assumed that at least 7 or 8 species were so thoroughly domesticated in ancient times by half-civilized man as to be quite prolific under confinement. An argument of great weight and applicable in several other cases is that the above specified breeds, though agreeing generally with the wild rock pigeon in constitution, habits, voice, coloring, and in most parts of their structure, yet are certainly highly abnormal in other parts. We may look in vain through the whole great family of Columbidae or something for a beak like that of the English carrier or that of the short-faced tumbler. I would not, but it's fine. For a crop, for reversed feathers like those of the Jacobin, for a crop like that of the pouter, for tail feathers like those of the fantail, he really likes his pigeons. Hence, it must be assumed not only that half-civilized man succeeded in thoroughly domesticating several species, but that he intentionally or by chance picked out extraordinarily abnormal species, and further, that these very species have since all become extinct or unknown. Not very likely. So many strange contingencies are improbable in the highest degree. Yeah. Some facts in regard to the coloring of pigeons well deserve consideration. The rock pigeon is of a slaty blue. What is a slaty blue? What are you even talking about? My sister is calling me right now, and I don't know what will happen if I pick up. So I'm going to decline. Sorry, Melina. Let me write her real quick. Okay. There you go. I guess. I hope. Let's see. Okay. So, some facts in regards of coloring. What? No, that was not where it was. Yes, that was where it was. Highest degree. The slaty blue. Metallic color. What do you mean by metallic color? How is slaty a metallic color? I need to see. I really. Has anyone made. I want to know that. Has anyone written ever the. Like, not rewritten, re-edited and published The Origin of Species with pictures? Like the Harry Potter books? With the drawings? Okay, I'm stopping, sorry. But if they haven't, and if they have, the tail has a terminal dark bar. What? No. The rock pigeon is of a slaty blue with white loins, but the Indian subspecies Columbia intermedia of Strickland has this part bluish, which is very much preferable because I would definitely prefer a bluish than a whitish anything. Okay. I'm pigeon color today. I love that. Okay, wait. The tail has a terminal dark bar with the outer feathers externally edged at the base with white. The wings have 2 black bars. Some semi-domestic breeds and some truly wild breeds have, besides the 2 black bars, the wings checkered with black. These several marks do not occur together in any other species of the whole family. Now, in every one of the domestic breeds, taking thoroughly well-bred birds, all the above marks, even to the white edging of the outer tail feathers, sometimes concur perfectly developed. Moreover, when birds belonging to 2 or more distinct breeds are crossed, none of which are blue or have any of the above specified marks, the mongrel offspring are very apt suddenly to acquire these characters. To give one instance, out of several which I have observed, I crossed some white, not me, Darwin, obviously, like, I didn't. I didn't um, To give one instance, out of several which I have observed, I crossed some white fantails which breed very true with some black barbs, and it so happens that blue varieties of barbs are so rare that I never heard of an instance in England that the mongrels were black, brown, and mottled. Yeah, but you didn't have the internet either. So, you know, maybe you didn't hear about them. Maybe others did. Maybe somebody saw them and they didn't know anything about birds. And then they didn't just think that they were gonna do anything about it. And they didn't contact you, the boss of all birds, apparently, who was part of 2 London pigeon clubs. I am part of 0 pigeon. I didn't even know that pigeon clubs existed. I don't know if they exist right now. 2 pages ago, you know? Okay. Black, blah. Moreover, when birds belonging to moor does benign, I haven't heard anything about that in England. I also crossed the barb with a spot, which is a white bird with a red tail and a red spot on the forehead, and which notoriously breeds very true. The mongrels were dusky and mottled. Mottled. That's what, yeah, I know. I know that's what he wants me to think. I knew that. Ugh. I then crossed one of the mongrel barbed fantails with a mongrel barb spot, and they produced a bird of as beautiful a blue color with the white loins, double black wing bar, and barred with white edged tail feathers as any wild rock pigeon. Exclamation point! I'm not sure I have seen a single exclamation point in this entire book until now. And he used an exclamation point. He was very excited about this blue color. That's so cute. It is so cute. Okay. Exclamation point. We can understand these facts on the well-known principle of okay. Exclamation point. We can understand these facts on the well-known principle of reversion to ancestral characters if all the domestic breeds are descendant from the rock pigeon. But if we deny this, we must make one of the 2 following highly improbable suppositions. Suppositions. You know what I mean. Either first, that all the several imagined aboriginal stocks were colored and marked like the rock pigeon, although no other existing species is thus colored and marked, because he knows all the species, I'm telling you, although no other existing species is thus colored and marked, so that in each separate breed there might be a tendency to revert to the very same colors and markings. Or secondly, that each breed, even the purest, has within a dozen, or secondly, that each breed, even the purest, has within a dozen, or at most within a score of generations, been crossed by the rock pigeon. I say within a dozen or 20 generations, for no instance is known of cross descendants reverting to an ancestor of foreign blood, removed by a greater number of generations. I didn't know that. That's interesting. Huh. I'm curious to know if that is still true. "12 generations is a lot. 20 generations is a lot. But I don't know if I could say that I don't have anything in common with somebody in my family tree 12 generations back, because take it with a grain of salt. Genetics wasn't a thing back then. Yeah, I know. But I'm still he was trying his best, okay? He was right. This was his short answer to "what are you doing?" So let's see. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Yes, genetics wasn't a thing. That's true. Let's keep that in mind. Genetics wasn't a thing back then. Okay. Yes, in a breed which has been crossed only once, the tendency to revert to any character derived from such a cross will naturally become less and less, as in each succeeding generation there will be less of the foreign blood. But when there has been no cross and there is a tendency in the breed to revert to a character which was lost, it's okay. But when there has been no cross and there is a tendency in the breed to revert to a character which was lost during some former generation, this tendency, for all that we can see to the contrary, may be transmitted undiminished for an indefinite number of generations, together by those who have written on inheritance. Wait, I may be transmitted undiminished for an indefinite number of generations. Missed the line. These two distinct cases of reversion are often confounded together by those who have written on inheritance. Okay. Lastly, the hybrids or mongrels from between all of the breeds of those pigeons are perfectly fertile, as I can state from my own observations purposely made on the most distinct breeds. Now, hardly any cases have been ascertained with certainty of hybrids from two quite distinct species of animals being perfectly fertile. Okay, he didn't know the definition of a species yet. I don't know. Everything is fine. It would be so fun to get together with him and hey, okay. Um, some authors believe that long continued domestication eliminates the strong tendency to sterility in species. From the history of the dog and of some other domestic animals, this conclusion is probably quite correct if applied to species closely related to each other. But the extent is so far as to suppose that species aboriginally as distinct as carriers, tumblers, pouters, and fantails now are, as distinct as they now are, should yield offspring perfectly fertile, inter se seems to me rash in the extreme. But there's no exclamation point there. I think I found the only exclamation. I mean, it was page 19. Where is it? Yes, there. Rock pigeon! Exclamation point! Okay. From these several reasons, namely the improbability of man having formerly made 7 or 8 supposed species of pigeons to breed freely under domestication, these supposed species being quite unknown in the wild state and their not having become anywhere feral, these species presenting certain very abnormal characters as compared with all other Columbidae, thought so. Though so like the rock pigeon in most other respects, the occasional reappearance of the blue color and various black marks in all the breeds, both when kept pure and when crossed, and lastly the mongrel offspring being perfectly fertile, from these several reasons taken together, we may safely conclude that all our domestic breeds are descended from the rock pigeon or Columba livia, which is with its geographical subspecies. Sure, right? Makes sense. Okay, in favor of this view, I may add, firstly, that the wild C. livia has been found capable of domestication in Europe and in India, and that it agrees and habits in a great number of points of structure with all the domestic breeds. Secondly, that although an English carrier or a short-faced tumbler differs immensely in certain characters from the rock pigeon, yet that by comparing the several subbreeds of these two races, wait, I lost the plot. Secondly, that although an English carrier and a short-faced tumbler differs immensely in certain characters from the rock pigeon, yet that by comparing the several subbreeds of these two races, more especially those brought from distant countries, we can make between them and the rock pigeon an almost perfect series. So we can, in some other cases, So we can in some other cases, but not with all the breeds. Okay. Thirdly, those characters which are mainly distinctive of each breed are in each eminently variable, for instance, the wattle and length of beak of the carrier, the shortness of that of the tumbler, and the number of tail feathers in the fantail, and the explanation of this fact will be obvious when we treat of selection. Fourthly, pigeons have been watched and tended with the utmost care and loved by many people. I don't know many people that love pigeons, but I do. I love pigeons. I don't love, again, I do not love anyone enough to let them live in my space. I guess Patrick. It's fine. But other than that, today, right? Fourthly, pigeons have been watched and tended with the utmost care and loved by many people. They have been domesticated for thousands of years in several quarters of the world. The earliest known record of pigeon is in the fifth Egyptian dynasty, about 3000 before Christus. And as was pointed out to me by Professor Lepsius, but Mr. Birch informs me okay. They have been domesticated for thousands of years in several quarters of the world. The earliest is known, the earliest record of pigeons is in the fifth Egyptian dynasty, about 3000 before Christi, as was pointed out to me by Professor Lepsius. But Mr. Birch informs me that pigeons are given in a bill of fare in the previous dynasty. So in the time of the Romans, as we hear from Pliny, immense prices were given for pigeons. Nay, they are come to this pass. As they can reckon up their pedigree and race. Pigeons were much valued by Akbar Khan in India, about the year 1600, and never less than 20,000 pigeons were taken with the court. What were they doing with so many pigeons? What would you do with so many pigeons? Like, there's a pigeon with a Medal of Honor, I think, in the British or US Army. Are you serious? What did it get the Medal of Honor for? It deserves it. I mean, so many random people get a Medal of Honor. I think every pigeon deserves one over them. Just saying. Pigeons. Never less than 20,000 pigeons were taken with a cart. What are you doing with so many pigeons? What's the deal? Why? Where was I? There. The monarchs of Iran and Turan sent him some very rare birds, and continues, did they know that birds can fly away? Just asking. Rare birds, and continues the courtly historian, His Majesty, by crossing the breeds, which methods was never practiced before, has improved them astonishingly. Improved them how? They were great before, they're great now. What do you mean, improved them astonishingly? What does it mean? Don't shame pigeons, non-crossed pigeons. About the same period, the Dutch were as eager about pigeons as were the old Romans. The paramount importance of these considerations in explaining the immense amount of variation which pigeons have undergone will likewise be obvious when we treat of selection. We shall then also see how it is that the several breeds so often have a somewhat monstrous character. What do you mean by he's used monstrous character sometime before, and I don't remember why, but it didn't make any sense there either. So I feel like maybe this monstrous category that he's using is basically meant something different for him than it means for me. I'm sure of it. Because monsters, what monsters?
What did you write? Delivered an important message, got nearly killed and mutilated on the way.
Good Pigeon. I'm very proud of you, Pigeon. I'm already tired. Monstrous character. It is also a most favorable circumstance for the production of distinct breeds that male and female pigeons can be easily mated for life, and thus different breeds can be kept together in the same aviary. Okay. I have discussed the probable origin of domestic pigeons at some yet quite insufficient length. Quite insufficient length? I didn't know any of this shit you were telling us about pigeons for like 5 pages or something. Anyways, I have discussed the probable origin of domestic pigeons at some yet quite insufficient length because when I first kept pigeons and watched the several kinds, well knowing how truly they breed, I felt fully as much difficulty in believing that since they had been domesticated, they had all proceeded from a common parent, as any naturalist could in coming to a similar conclusion in regard to the many species of finches or other groups of birds in nature. Do not start with other groups of birds right now, I cannot. Well, he's gonna. Spoiler alert, he's gonna. Okay. One circumstance has struck me much, namely that nearly all the breeders of the various domestic animals and the cultivators of plants with whom I have observed or whose treatises, I'm not sure how to pronounce this word, okay? Bear with me. Treatises, but where was I again? I have read. I have conserved blah blah with whom I have conserved or whose treatises I have read are firmly convinced that the several breeds to which each has attended are descended from so many aboriginal distinct species. Ask, as I have asked, a celebrated raiser of Hereford cattle whether his cattle might not have descended from longhorns or both from a common parent stock, and he will laugh to your scorn. Very dramatic. Like, whoo, I will laugh to your scorn. Okay. I have never met a pigeon or poultry or duck or rabbit fancier who was not fully convinced that each main breed was descended from a distinct species. Never? Well, wait for that time machine. I promise you, everything's fine. Van Mons in his treatise on pears and apples shows how utterly he disbelieves that the several sorts, for instance, a Ribston pippin or a Codlin apple. Did they have pink apple? Pink lady? Could ever have proceeded from the seeds of the same tree. Innumerable other examples could be given. The explanation, I think, is simple. From long continued study that are strongly impressed with the differences between the several races, and though they well know that each race varies slightly, for they win their prizes by selecting such slight differences, yet they ignore all general arguments and refuse to sum up in their minds slight differences accumulated during many successive generations. You know? I'm not good at this. I need to coordinate somehow my head movement. Something like that. May not those naturalists who, knowing far less of the laws of inheritance than does the breeder, and knowing no more than he does in the intermediate links of the intermediate links in the long lines of descent, yet admit that many of our domestic races are descended from the same parents, may they not learn a lesson of caution when they deride the idea of species in a state of nature being lineal descendants of other species?
Pink lady apple is way too sweet to be enjoyable. I don't know if I agree, because I think I've never eaten a pink lady apple, because they're way too. They cost like €2 an apple. I do not give a damn about how enjoyable or not it is. I am not paying that much for an apple. I don't really like apples in general. Why? What does this mean? Oh, I have to do that. What do you mean, inactivity during my life? I'm reading the entire time. Sorry, TikTok was telling me that I'm not doing anything, so my life's gonna end in 5 minutes because I'm not doing anything. What do you mean? And we go on to the next part of this chapter, which is on principle of selection and anciently followed and their effects. Okay. Let us now, I need to be able to read. I like reading is. Look, my nerd cap. I bought this when I was in my bachelor's. Okay. Let us now briefly consider the steps by which domestic races have been produced, either from one or from several allied species. Some effect may be attributed to the direct and definite action of the external conditions of life, and some to habit, but he would be a bold man who would account by such agencies for the differences between a dray and a racehorse. What is a dray? What is a dray? What is a dray? A greyhound and a bloodhound, a carrier and tumbler pigeon. One of the most remarkable features in our domesticated races is that we see in them adaptation not indeed to the animals or plants' own good, but to man's use or fancy. You know, some variations useful to him have probably arisen suddenly or by one step. Many botanists, for instance, believe that the fuller's teasel was a fuller's teasel, with its hooks which cannot be rivaled by any mechanical contrivance, is only a variety of the wild discapus. Did you hear what he just said? I did. I don't know these species. I have no idea. I'm sorry. I sometimes, when I'm doing these lives, I feel like I'm drunk. I feel like I'm actually, this is only water. I cannot show you without spilling the water. This would actually show how drunk I was if I did. But every time I'm doing these lives, I feel like I'm drunk. I feel like I'm having so much fun. Hi, hello. Also, my nerd cap says biologie in there. Okay. Where was I? He said something about some species that nobody knows. There, okay. So it has probably been with the turnip dog, and this is known to have been the case with the Ankan sheep. Okay. Good. But when we compare the dray horse and racehorse, again, pictures. The dromedary and camel, there is they have very specific differences in these, but it's fine.
The various breeds of sheep fitted either for cultivated land or mountain pasture, with the wool of one breed good for one purpose, and that of another breed for another purpose. When we compare the many breeds of dogs, which each good for man in different ways, you do realize that this book is sexist. AF. But it's fine. It's not fine. It's fine. I mean, you know. Oh, it's Melanie. Okay. Melina, we were talking about pigeons for like an entire section of this chapter. Be happy that you're not here yet. That you weren't here yet. What? What? That you weren't here yet. Okay. So. We're comparing many dog breeds, blah, good for man in different ways, sexism. Okay. When we compare the gamecock, I'm a grown adult human. So pertinacious in battle with other breeds, so little quarrelsome, with everlasting layers which never desire to sit, and with the bantam so small and elegant, when we compare the host of agricultural, culinary, orchard, and flower garden races of plants, which I have also never done. Funny how now you read out. Melina, I read it loud back then as well. Just so you know. So, okay. My sister says that I was reading to her when we were little and that I stopped reading out loud all the time. Yeah, to you too. And that I was stopping to read out loud when I was reading Harry Potter to her, and that I stopped, and then I was like, and demonetized. I'm sorry, I didn't do anything. Okay. Yes, that I stopped reading out loud and I read just for me. And I'm doing that a few times, but I'm trying my best, okay? And I did do that the same for you back then. So shh. Shh. Where was I? Some stuff about plants nobody knows. Most useful to man at different seasons and for different purposes, or so beautiful in his eyes, we must, I think, look further than to mere variability. We cannot suppose that all the breeds were suddenly produced as perfect and as useful as we now see them. Makes sense, right? Indeed, in many cases, we know that this was not been their history. The key is man's power of accumulative selection. Nature gives successive variations, man adds them up in certain directions useful to him, and in this sense he may be said to have made for himself useful breeds. Duh! That's domestication in a nutshell. Well, it's fine. It's Darwin. It's not today. The great power of this principle of selection is not hypothetical. It is certain that several of our eminent breeders have, even with a single lifetime, modified to a large extent their breeds of cattle and sheep. In order fully to realize that they have what they have done, it is almost necessary to read several of the many treatises devoted to the subject and to inspect the animals. Breeders habitually speak of an animal's organization as something plastic, which they can model almost as they please. If I had space, I could quote numerous passages to this effect from highly competent authorities. What do you mean, if I had space? Youat, I guess it's a name, who was probably better acquainted with the words of agriculturalists than almost any other individual, and who was himself a very good judge of animals, speaks of the principle of selection as that which enables the agriculturalist, not only to modify the character of his flock, but to change it altogether. It is the magician's wand by means of which he may summon into life whatever form and mold he pleases. Lord Somerville, speaking of what breeders have done for sheep, says, "It would seem as if they had chalked out upon a walk a form." Oh, why are you not wearing your mic? Because I am being on both. I'm I'm here on TikTok and I'm also on YouTube at the same time, and am I have placed my let me show you. I have placed my phone right there so that you can both see me, both platforms can see me, but at the same time, I am pugs. True. That's a good counter argument. Pugs are, yeah. But I mean, it also is like pleasing man because men are dumb. And I don't mean men as in men, males, I mean humans in general. Yes, but Melina, and if I do that, I cannot stick the mic underneath, and also, no. Sorry, I got a new mic from my parents for my birthday, which was like 8 days ago, and I have been using it, and yeah, good dog. I know, right? Violation was flagged for hate speech and hateful behaviors. Oh my god. Okay, it's fine. Restricted for some audiences, that's fine as well. Okay, so let's keep going. Where was I? Where was I? I was where Somerville was saying. Ah, yes, there. Lord Somerville, speaking of that, what breeders have done to sheep, says, "It would seem as if they had chalked out upon a wall a form perfect in itself, and then had given it existence." In Saxony, the importance of the principle of selection in regard to merino sheep is so fully recognized that men follow it as a trade. The sheep are placed on a table and are studied like a picture by a connoisseur, and this is done 3 times at intervals of months, and the sheep are each time marked and classed so that they very best may ultimately be selected for breeding. What English breeders have actually effected is proven by the enormous prices given for animals with a good pedigree, and these have been exported to almost every quarter of the world. The improvement is by no means generally due to crossing different breeds. All the best breeders are strongly opposed to this practice, except sometimes among closely allied subbreeds. And when a cross has been made, the closest selection is far more indispensable even than in ordinary cases. If selection consistent merely in separating some very distinct variety and breeding from it, the principle would be so obvious as hardly to be worth notice, but its importance consisting in the great effect produced by the accumulation in one direction during successive generations of differences absolutely inappreciable by an uneducated eye, like mine, just saying. Um, Differences which I, for one, have vainly attempted to appreciate. And he knows like every single bird species out there. That's incredible. If gifted with these qualities and he studies his subjects for years and devotes his lifetime to it with indomitable perseverance, he will succeed and may make great improvements. If he wants any of these qualities, he will assuredly fail. Few would readily believe in the natural capacity and years of practice requisite to become even a skillful pigeon fancier. And he is a skillful pigeon fancier. I mean, he is
actually in 2 pigeon clubs. I want to know if pigeon clubs still exist. What are people doing in a pigeon club? Okay. The same principles are followed by horticulturists, but the variations are here often more abrupt. No one supposes that our choicest productions have been produced by a single variation from the aboriginal stock. We have proofs that this is not in several cases in which exact records have been kept. Thus, to give a very trifling instance, the steadily increasing size of the common gooseberry may be quoted. We see an astonishing improvement in many florists' flowers when the flowers of the present day are compared with drawings made only 20 or 30 years ago. That's funny. Maybe they were just bad painters, you know? Okay. When a race of plants is once pretty well established, the seed raisers do not pick out the best plants, but merely go over their seed beds and pull out the rogues, as they call the plants that deviate from the proper standard. With animals, this kind of selection is in fact likewise followed, for hardly anyone is so careless as to breed from his worst animals. In regard to plants, there is another means of observing the accumulated effects of selection, namely by comparing the diversity of flowers in the different varieties of the same species in the flower garden. The diversity of leaves, pods, or tubers, or whatever part is valued in the kitchen garden, in comparison with the flowers of the same varieties and the diversity of fruit of the same species in the orchard, in comparison with the leaves and flowers of the same set of varieties. So between kitchen garden and orchard. See how different the leaves of the cabbage are, and how extremely alike the flowers, how unlike the flowers of the heartsease are. I don't know what I mean. He's assuming, just because I'm a biologist, that I will know all these species, and I promise you I do not. I really do not. How unlike the flowers of the hearties are, and how alike the leaves. How much the fruit of the different kinds of gooseberries differ in size, color, shape, and hairiness, and yet the flowers present very slight differences. It is not that the varieties which differ largely in some one point do not differ at all in other points. This is hardly ever, I speak after careful consideration, perhaps never the case. It's so cute how he writes. He writes how I write in my journal. Like, I'm trying to be exact, but at the same time, I'm very dramatic. Yes. Okay, bye Melanie. Love you too. Love you more. Τα λέμε, ναι. Πες μου τι ώρα θα έρθεις βασικά. Okay. Perhaps never the case. The law of correlated variation, the importance of which should never be overlooked, will ensure some differences, but as a general rule, it cannot be doubted that the continued selection of slight variations, either in the leaves, the flowers, or the fruit, will produce races differing from each other, chiefly in these characters. Δεν ξέρω ακόμα. Βασικά να το γράψουμε στο WhatsApp. Θα τα πούμε εκεί. Tilman, birding. What? What do you mean? The German ones are different though. What? What do you mean? What do you mean? I don't know what is happening. I don't know when you said it so that I can go back and see what you meant. Okay. What they do in pigeon clubs. Yeah. Yeah. Probably. What do you mean by German ones are different? Are you part of any pigeon clubs? I need I need to know right now. What do you know about pigeon clubs? What's a pigeon club? I want to be part of a pigeon club. Do we hang out with pigeons there? I want to hang out with a pigeon. I want to hang out with a pigeon right now. Oh my god. Every time. Fine. I'll keep reading then. Where was I? Perhaps never the case. The law of correlated variation, the importance of which should never be overlooked, will ensure some differences, but as a general rule, it cannot be doubted that the continued selection of slight variations, either in the leaves, the flowers, or the fruit, will produce races differing from each other, chiefly in these characters. Everything is fine. It may be objected that the principle of selection has been reduced to methodical practice for scarcely more than 3/4 of a century. 75 years? Why are you not writing 75 years? It's fine. It has certainly been more attended to of late years, and many treatises have been published on the subject, and the result has been, in a corresponding degree, rapid and important. Understandable, but it is very far from true that the principle is a modern discovery. I could give several references. He always could give several references on stuff. You know, he's never like saying, okay, these are the references I have. Wait, he does say that sometimes. It's fine. Everything is fine. I'm not gonna cancel him right now. No, but he's always like, I could give an extensive list if I had the time, if I had if I had the space. What do you mean if you had the space? You wrote the book. You wrote an entire effing book. Nowadays, a scientist has to, I don't know, abide by certain rules of like, oh, this can only be 5,000 words or whatever. And you had an entire book and you're like, oh, well, if I had the time, if I had the space, if I wanted to, I would. Yeah, duh. What? When he does, you complain about details and species you don't know. I agree. I'm a complainer, apparently. I'm gonna be complaining all day long. This is so fun. Okay. Where was I? I could give several references to works of high antiquity in which the full importance of the principle is acknowledged. In rude and barbarous periods of English history, choice animals were often imported and laws were passed to prevent their exportation. I want him to be more specific now. The destruction of horses under a certain size was ordered, and this may be compared to the roguing of plants by nursery. Oh my god. The destruction of horses under a certain size was ordered. You're lucky we didn't do that with humans. Let's Google how tall Darwin was. Charles Darwin height. I bet we don't know his height. Was approximately 6 feet tall. Although a stoop from his chronic illness often made him appear shorter. Okay, everyone says that he was 6 feet tall. I wanna say that I'm 6'1". Okay. Where was I? Yes, here.
The principle of selection I find distinctly given in an ancient Chinese encyclopedia. Explicit rules are laid down by some of the Roman classical writers. From passages in Genesis, it is clear that the color of domestic animals was at that early period attended to. Savages now sometimes cross their dogs with wild canine animals to improve the breed, and they formerly did so as is attested by passages in Pliny. It is incredible that he told me that he's not going to tell me, and now he's telling me.
Just saying. Time for you to go to bed, don't shame Darwin. Well.
He's shaming horses, okay? He's shaming horses. And he did that to other birds too. But he was also exclaiming how much he liked the blue color of the dove there, so it was fine. Of the pigeon, sorry. Yeah. The savages in South Africa match their draught cattle by color, as do some of the Eskimo with their teams of dogs. Livingstone states that good domestic breeds are highly valued by the Negroes and in the interior of Africa, who are highly valued by the who have not associated. I must start the sentence again, okay? I must start it again. Livingstone states that good domestic breeds are highly valued by the Negroes in the interior of Africa. I don't think we're saying that anymore, Darwin. Who have not associated with Europeans. Some of these facts do not show actual selection, but they show that the breeding of domestic animals was carefully attended to in ancient times and is now attended to by the lowest savages. Who is the lowest? What are you talking about? Not only sexist, it's racist as well. It would indeed have been, and elitist. It would indeed have been a strange fact had attention not been paid to breeding, for the inheritance of good and bad qualities is so obvious. The next chapter chunk is going to be on unconscious selection, and I am not going to be reading that today because, as Tillman very well pointed out, it is time for me to go to bed because I am shaming Darwin, and he was also part of his breeding and nature and nurture and everything, you know. I'm so eloquent. I should write a book. I am actually. I forgot about that. Yeah, I'm gonna keep reading on another time. I'm very happy you were here, and I love you, and see you soon. Bye-bye. Good night. Wait, how am I leaving this? That way. When you have a game, okay. I don't know what that means. And here, a straight end.